I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is approval of the agenda as presented. One thing I want to add down here underneath the health board issue is road striping that, and I'm not sure what the name of it is, but it goes into the foundry and web wheel. We can have that for discussion. Otherwise, is there any other changes, modifications? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I'll make that motion.
Second. The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chris Kaufman, you're up first.
Thanks for having me. I've got Tom Bohm here as well. I'm here on behalf of the Port Authority. I sent you a copy of an ordinance. I've got copies if you need them. What this is last year, if you guys remember, we issued bond anticipation notes called bands in order to do the construction financing of the new bridge across the Anderson River that the Port Authority built. Permanent financing is done by United States Department of Agriculture, USDA. They will not provide construction financing, so you have to find a way to finance it during construction, and then they come take out that financing. So what we are here on today is to begin the process of refunding the bond anticipation notes with the permanent financing from the USDA. So they will purchase a bond in an amount sufficient to pay off the bands. So today is just introducing the ordinance. We don't take any action on this at all. And what this ordinance does is it appropriates the money we get from the bond sale from the USDA and appropriates that money to pay off the bands. And then, of course, the Port Authority, through its revenues, pays off the USDA bond over time. I think it's over
40 years.
Through 44.
Through 44.
Through 44.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah. And the interest rate on that is 3.75%. So pretty good. So the process is we introduce this today, and then I am going to put a notice in the paper of a public hearing, which we would like to be held on your regular meeting on November 4th. Randy's at 9.
I am.
9.
We'll be back here still.
Yeah, 9 a.m. for a public hearing, and then we take action on this at that time. Assuming you all approve it after the public hearing, we will close on it sometime in November and get the bands paid off. Because they accrue interest, so every day it sits out there, it accrues interest, needs to be paid. And Tom's here to answer any questions about the project if you have.
Finished with it?
Yep. It's
Did
done.
it run over budget, or did you get her in all right?
It's done. Budget is always kind of an odd number, right?
Go ahead and tell us.
No, it's pretty close, but there were certain things that were added into it that we didn't anticipate, but then we were able to make some of that money back on a couple other projects where Alvin Evans, who's been our project manager, was able to find some ways to get some money back out of a couple of things. Pretty much on budget. But it's done. One of these days, I'd like to invite y'all to come on out and see it. It's quite a change from the old wood trestle bridge that was out there. It's all concrete and steel, and should be there long after we're all done. So,
How's your rail project coming along?
the rail project's doing well. In fact, we're next month or the month after, we're starting the process, the financing process. It's a grant. And you know how all that goes, and it takes a lot of paperwork, and even though it's free money, it still costs us a fair bit of money to get all the legal documentation done. But we anticipate that being done sometime next summer. So that's a $12 million project.
Right. And how far is that gonna take your?
That takes everything. That
It
gets us all.
replaces the entire line.
Well, it gets the line that we've already replaced.
Right.
So there's,
So clear to Lincoln City, you're
Yeah.
gonna have
It's like 17 miles out of the 22 that we have. I mean, we've been doing bits and pieces, kind of working our way that way. We're good to Troy, but now this is gonna be good all the way out. So we should be in great shape after that.
On those grants, were they weren't just dollar grants or how?
No, the bridge was, we had to come up with 20%, and that's what this USDA loan, we basically had to borrow money to come up with it. But the 80% was paid by EDA. And this other one is 100%, we don't have to match.
That's good. You can get them, grab them.
Oh, yeah.
With the new rail, you'll be able to carry more weight then too, won't you?
We should be able to carry more weight. We had the capability, we won't really have the rolling stock to pull it, but the tracks will be good enough to do.
Okay. That's what
Yeah,
in the past.
we got 2 or 3 grades between here and Lincoln City that are fairly steep grades that, you know, if we were to haul heavier cars, we'd have to haul fewer of them, so the total weight.
Do like they do out west, they get one to push you.
Well,
Right.
we'd have locomotives, a refurbished locomotive, just to refurbish the ones we've got, $1 million. So it's,
That's the way they did us, they pushed us.
that's we love to have them, but it's not a cheap day.
I know.
No action tonight, so if you don't have any questions.
Right, we're just.
It's just falling in line what we planned
Yeah,
on going over.
yeah, this is, in fact, the amount is, they always put a maximum amount in these things of $1.9 million, but the actual amount is 1.428. So $1,428,000 is the actual amount of the bond. That includes everything, that includes issuance costs, and all, that's all it'll involve.
But it's the federal government, so as you know, it takes a lot of monkey business to get there, but we're getting there.
I would like to see that bridge.
Absolutely, we'll get you out there.
Very short time. I don't have very many months left now, okay?
Well, if you want to come out this week,
It's still go out already.
Don't be fishing off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have signs on it, you know, no trespassing and that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a wrong thing to put up.
Well, don't really know what else we can do.
Now, did the old one get taken up? Removed?
It's totally removed.
Okay.
See, that was
part of the deal, was they wanted to clear out the pier that was in the middle of the river.
I
It was
thought that,
causing
yeah.
blockages.
that was what added to the costs. Because originally, we didn't have to take care of that little island that had been created. And the federal government came back and said, no, you gotta get rid of that. Then we worked with a contractor on some stuff. And we were able to get it done fairly cheap.
That old bridge is pretty impressive too, with the big wooden post in it.
So if we don't need any action,
Nope.
we'll
No,
see you on
but
the
we'll be back, on the
Well,
4th.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item up is Kevin Hurt from the Veteran Service Officer.
I was just calling today about the courthouse road from 37 to the back entrance of the parking lot of courthouse. Getting that closed on the Veterans Day car show.
Probably 23rd Street, maybe?
It's called Courthouse Road on
I
the
know,
sign,
but
but
it's lined up with a numbered road in Tell City, but I
Yeah.
don't, I'm not sure which one it is, but it's never been open publicly.
Probably need some barricades.
yeah, from the entrance of 37.
Steve, can you help with that?
We did it last year. Right.
No, I didn't close it last year, but this year with the construction going on, we need a little bit more space because we used that grass last year, but we don't have that this year. So using that road will give us more space. Plus we'll be able to use the entrance coming into the courthouse parking lot too. So, and safety too, kids and people walking around, people not flying in off 37.
I'm good with it.
I'm fine, I probably do. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve closing of the courthouse drive, the 9th, right?
Yeah.
The day you need it?
Yeah.
November 9th, during the hours of the.
8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
8 to 3.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second.
A motion, a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Just work with Steve.
Okay.
Just-
I'll just get with you before.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next item up is acceptance of the minutes from 10/07/2024. Is there any changes, modifications? If Not,
No,
I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Chris, I don't know what the 23 State Board of Accounts is, so.
Well, I have had several inquiries on the 2023 audit, and I just thought that it would probably be in the best interest to do this in a public setting so we can let everybody know the realms of our audit and everything. The State Board of Accounts field examiners started our audit off-site in March of 24 and finished up the end of August, September, 1st of September with our audit. We had our exit meetings on September 13th, I believe. Does that sound right? So with the regular portion of our audit, we did have 4 findings, which I'm okay with going over, as I feel that they're just some things to help us organize and do things better. The first finding of 2023-001, Perry County did not have effective internal controls over reporting the annual financial report. The ineffective internal controls resulted in material errors not being reported in Gateway. The corrective action was the auditor is now aware of this information is to be submitted on the AFR. As in the years past, the information has not been submitted in previous years. These financial records were not included in the LAO financials. The auditor will add these financials or these funds to the financial software to ensure proper future reporting. So basically, our bond information is not involved, is not in our ledger, in our accounting financial software. So thus, it has never been reported on our AFR, but these field examiners are saying it should have, so that's just kind of one idea there. So the completed date of this corrective action will be March 1st of 2025 when I do the 2024 AFR. One thing I wanted to say before this, you can visit the State Board of Accounts website and search by county, and the audit reports are on there. All of the information from our audit report is accessible on there. It was posted on September 27th. So our second finding, 2023-002, preparation of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. Perry County did not properly review the federal grant information prepared and submitted in Gateway. The ineffective internal controls resulted in material errors on the county's schedule of federal awards expended. The auditor is now aware that some grants start out as federal grant funding, but by the time the funds reach the county level, it is no longer considered federal funding. Also, in 2023, the auditor's office noticed a lack of information being submitted to the auditor's office when grants are applied for and then received. In 2023, a system was implemented to entail all paperwork is filed in the auditor's office prior. Auditor Hammock feels confident in the auditor's office grant reporting going forward. The information presented in Gate will be reviewed in the paperwork filed in the auditor's office prior to submission. Basically, I over-reported our federal grants. I'd rather over-report than under-report, though. But for example, the Community Crossings grant, which I included on there, actually starts out as a federal grant, but by the time it reaches us at the county level, it's not considered county funding. So that's that. Like I said, the completion date for this corrective action is March 1st. So just reported more funding in federal dollars than we've actually received. The next finding for 2023-003, the ineffective internal controls results in a failure of having processes and procedures in place to prohibit from contractors who are making subawards under covered transactions to parties that are suspended and disbarred, or whose principals are suspended or disbarred. This is a huge one that's going on right now. I've spoken with several county auditors. This is pretty much a finding most every county is getting. It is basically that in a lot of our contracts, we have to make sure that all of our vendors are not suspended or disbarred. I think, and Randy, you can correct me if we look back, we actually had it in some of our contracts, but not all of them. Am I correct?
No, it's in all of them.
All of them? It is in all of them. So
They weren't aware of that, and I actually reached out to the State Board of Accounts, sent them that contract, and asked whether this doesn't serve the purpose, and they said, yes, it did.
it did. So, but it's
But at
still
the
in our
time-
report.
They put it in the report because at the time they hadn't read one of them, so.
We had already taken the steps, which I hadn't seen the contracts, because this is in regards to the AR or the ARPA funding, which I hadn't seen those contracts because Mr. Cole has them. But we here, we in the auditor's office, have taken the extra step, and have added it onto all of our vendor information sheets. So any vendor that we pay, before we submit any payment, it requires them to submit proof, instead of us having to do it, that they are not suspended or disbarred. So we're doing it with all of our vendors, not just our ARPA vendors. So we've already started this, went over it with our field examiners. So the completion date for this corrective action was September 30th of 2024. It's already been addressed. This one is also to do with ARPA funding, finding 2023-004. Perry County did not properly report period expenditures. The county submitted one P&E report during the audit period, although the auditor deputy compiled the information for the report and the county auditor reviewed it and submitted the report. The internal controls were not effective in preventing or detecting and correcting errors. As a result, the P report contained errors. Basically what happened is this was my first report for the ARPA, and this is in April 30th through, it ends on a fiscal year, not a calendar year, and I reported calendar. All of our numbers matched up after we went back and did that, but I reported on a calendar, not the physical. So just reporting error. The auditor is now aware of the PE reporting period is not calendar. All internal controls will stay in place, and this information will be noted for further reporting. The auditor will review the reports prior to submission to ensure that the reporting period is not on a calendar year. So completion date for this corrective action will be March 1st of 2025 when the next report is due. Actually, I think it's ending March 1st, but yeah. The next thing, which I know that we've talked about, or it's been stated, these were in the regular spectrum of our audit. There were some additional items that were submitted to the State Board of Accounts. The State Board of Accounts has a website, and anyone, citizens of Perry County, anyone can submit anything to the State Board of Accounts. Okay, and if it is submitted to them, they have to look into it. Okay, so most of the time when people submit something to the State Board of Accounts, it warrants an investigation. I spend a lot of time with the field examiners. I spend a lot of time with our audit manager, and these are the things that they explain to me. I work hand in hand. I'm the main contact with all the field examiners with the State Board of Accounts, and so every item that was submitted anonymously was reviewed by me. I had to go through that. So there were numerous ones. A lot of them were duplicates. They told me that they could tell they were by different people because of the way of the wording of their paragraphs and typing, but a lot of them were repeated items. So a couple of them that I've kind of listed some of them that I feel the first set, I kind of grouped the ones that I feel deal with the auditor's office. There were several lists of people within the county getting homes, they were questioning their homestead deductions. And I reviewed every one of those with the field examiners, and they reported nothing back to me of any, and nothing was in our audit report. So the reason none of these anonymous tips, well, not none of them, some of them really, some of them are in the audit report as management corrections, not as findings. But if they didn't find anything, it's not in our audit report. So there were no homesteads deductions that is being given that should not be. There was one error of one that was corrected in 2023. But the way it was corrected, it fell off in 2024. It was a complete oversight, but it was very visible that it was corrected in 2023, just wasn't properly corrected. So those changes have been made. And I just want to let anybody know that if you ask me to look into a homestead, I'm going to look into it. And if there's something wrong, we're going to fix it. And we'll do whatever we're supposed to do within those guidelines of fixing that. The next one that did have to do with the auditor's office is an error on a special legislation fund transfer, which we did get a management letter for this, which basically means it's kind of like a verbal, but it's document. There's verbals and then there's management letters of communication of non-compliance. So these are things that they will look at next year when they come to audit. Pretty much they'll look at everything, but these are things that are documented. I think I've spoke about it before, but we had done a $100,000 loan from special legislation to CUNCAP development. I went to pay that back on May 31st and I did it backwards. So basically I took 200,000 out. Then I was like, well, I guess we already corrected it because we borrowed 200 this year. So I thought like I had corrected it, and then I felt like I would pay the 200 that we borrowed this year back with fall settlement, because I can't do it all at once because we've got bills to pay. I can't do it all at once. And we do run that fund we pay a lot of stuff out in CUNCAP development at the beginning of the year because a lot of our contracts are due. I have worked with a lot of our elected officials, and a lot of these places, they want their money up front. So they try to entice you with saying, oh, we'll give you a 7% or 10% discount if you pay up front. We're just not in a position where we can do that. So we've basically got all of our contracts now set up to where they're paid biannually or quarterly instead of, because we only get our money twice a year on that. So, so that will be corrected with fall settlement in November, which we have settlement already scheduled for November 20th. But in the midst of this, with them looking at our special legislation, it says during the special legislation fund was created to account for the special legislation local income tax lit that was authorized by statute to pay the lease rental payments associated with the construction of the jail. Because the underlying debt was retired in 2022 with no further lease rental payments due from the county, any balance in the lit special legislation fund was to have been transferred into a county jail operation fund to be used for jail maintenance and operation costs, according to statute. This fund has not been created. So they're going to look at this next year, because in the midst of looking at the special legislation fund, due to this anonymous tip regarding my error, they found errors that that money should have been transferred when the bond was paid off in July of 2022 to jail maintenance. So that's something we're going to have to look at, because whatever that balance was at the time should have been moved to jail operations, and it can only be used for jail operations. So I do know that I talked to them about the changes that happened in May or happened this year with the changes in legislation. And I was told that that doesn't matter, whatever that balance was, it should have went to jail operations. Any further funding from there, that's a whole different story. So this is another thing that they're going to be looking at in 2024. I was like, well, what about, there's nothing they can do about it now because it's 2020. They're not auditing 2024. They're only auditing 2023. So that's definitely something we're going to have to look at with that. But this all came to be because they got to looking at the special legislation fund because of the tip about my heir. So this probably wouldn't have happened had that not been done. But anyway, the next thing is, and I hope you guys can understand my face when I'm sitting and talking to these field examiners, especially when I go in here and they're like, okay, well, let me ask you about this. What do you, and as we get going, I'll kind of explain a little bit more of that. But the next one was the sheriff purchased a Tahoe from commissary and the auditor never asked permission to add to county insurance. I guess I would take it as, and when I was explaining to them, I mean, you can probably guess me if you know me, I had to get up and walk out quite a few times because I would think that it would be part of my job that if it was approved for the sheriff to purchase a Tahoe through commissary, that I think you'd be more upset with me if I didn't put insurance on it. I think since you approved for it to be purchased, you want insurance on it. So there's that. No finding in on that. The check for $5,000 that was payable to the K-9 donation, I provided all the paperwork to them. I never heard anything else about it, and there's no finding in our audit on that. No verbal comment, nothing. The next list is stuff that I feel was had to do with the county. Our Christmas party was reported. Now, mind you, the county has put on a Christmas party since 2008. And it kind of jumps around from office to office who is taking care of it, who oversees it. We've always asked for donations from local businesses. And everybody in the county, as a county employee, part-time, full-time, elected officials, everybody was invited. But we do have a verbal finding from this. Is it verbal or management letter? Hold on. Actually, I think it's a management letter. Yes, a management letter. So they'll make sure we correct this next year. So we can't, it's due to the fact, which I do believe, I'm saying I do understand it, that we should have opened an employee association account since we were requesting donations on behalf of the county. I will say this too. We have a binder and they went through everything. And my office did it this year, which I do feel is probably why it was reported. But anyway, we had a spreadsheet with everything, documenting everything that was brought in, all receipts, everything. So there was no issue. They were like, that they as field examiners thought everything was right on that. But proper protocol is we should have opened an employee association and they received those donations through there instead of through the county. But mind you, we've been doing this since 2008. The next one, I am going to say, information is being shared with Megan Fritchley. Literally, that's what was said in my office. Megan comes in my office quite often and asks for information. There's a lot of people that do. There's a lot of, everything is public knowledge. I know what I can't share. Just no finding or anything on that. Next thing was conflict of interest. And the amount of time that I felt, I will honestly say that I felt like I was being interrogated. Or was playing a game. I guess interrogate is not the right word. Playing a game. Because he was like, can you think of anyone on the health board that you think you would need a conflict of interest form for? Because we'd already, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's not my job. And he was like, they're a doctor. And I was like, I was rattling off Perry County doctors left and right. And all of a sudden, basically, it's in the report, the actual report, because there was a finding on this, that there was a health board member that has a sign, which is actually Dr. Brockman, has a sign on Washington Street that the health department purchased advertisements for. Now, mind you, he has a whole separate subcontract with someone that runs it. My whole thing is, if somebody really felt, I'm a team player, if somebody really felt that we needed a conflict of interest for that, call me, I don't care. Hey, and you know what I do? 2 minutes flat, fix it. Hey, Adam, I think, hey, we probably need to get a conflict of interest statement on the email just to you, can you fill it out? That's what a lot of this is, where if we would have worked together as a team or even communicated, and I'm not saying I completely understand that a majority, that anybody could have submitted these, citizens, elected officials, anybody. But there's a lot of information here. No one has information on the special legislation fund except for myself, commissioners, and council. Those are the only people that have information on that. Now, the other stuff is a whole different story. The other conflict of interest was on Keith Huck, same thing. Hey, Chris, I think we need a conflict of interest for Keith Huck. He's a council member and he repaired a garage door out here. And that was actually my mistake because I intended to get him a conflict of interest statement, but being scatterbrained, whatever, by my mistake, I had him fill out a non-disclosure instead of a conflict of interest. But the next thing is take-home vehicles, which we actually have a comment on. We don't actually, we never have for employees that have take-home vehicles claimed it on their W-2s. But if based on State Board of Accounts statutes and all this, we should be. We never had done it before, and all it would have taken was somebody saying, hey, Chris, I think we need to look at this, or taking it to our personnel policy committee to look at. So that's the next thing. Our commissary fund was reported. I bowed out on that. I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And Alan submits his reports to all of us and biannually.
Just the county council twice a year. That's the only people that have it.
Yeah. So I don't have any information on that. So Alan can share any information on that he has.
Care if I come up?
Sure, come on up. I don't know how this is in our commissioners meeting though. I mean, it's online.
Well, I think the
People can read
public
it.
should know.
Well, we should have scheduled a special meeting if we were gonna go through these, because it is a document. Everything, I guess, is online, Chris, everything you're reading, right?
Not
It's
everything.
not.
Mhm.
So this is the first time hearing a lot of these things because
They went over all of them in our exit. Most
each
all
one of
them.
those things that people called in,
Most all of them, yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't remember some of them.
They weren't in, they said they weren't going to discuss them in our, well, you're right. They weren't going to discuss all of them in our exit. They only discussed the ones that involved findings.
Right, so
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those things are just, and it's like a police officer, Alan gets this all the time. Somebody will call in and report something to him and part of his job is, whether he believes it or not, he's required to check it out. It's just what,
Of course, I think it's probably.
yeah, that's just how it works.
So I would like to say that twice a year that I have to submit my commissary to the county council only. We can give it to anybody else by law. I have to give it to county council. Never had a problem with that in the last 9 years. Recently, I've got from the State Board of Accounts numerous reports reports on my commissary. Every one of them were unfounded. I just want to say that I feel that is a waste of somebody or some group's time. I also feel that it is a huge waste of money of county taxpayers. That many complaints came against my commissary. Nobody asked for one records request, but it only goes to the council. So if somebody has an issue with that, I would hope before they would go State Board of Accounts, they would come to me as the sheriff who oversees the commissary, who got 0 complaints from the State Board of Accounts. They think it was fine. I just think it's sad how much money it's gonna cost this county from those bogus complaints on me. Thank you.
Alan, before you go, you think it might have had something to do with what went over in Du Bois County with that sheriff and that kind? Because I don't know whether there's any specifics involved. Christian, I guess not.
I don't think those had anything to do with it.
Yeah, but they had issues over there and that was in the news. and
Yeah,
I'm not
they've had
so sure.
problem in Clark County as well.
Yeah.
But in my last 9 years, I haven't had any of
Right,
this.
but that doesn't mean that somebody might think, well, they don't necessarily care for you, so they'll say something or.
But
Now, if I'm understanding right, I have no idea where this site is, but I'm understanding somebody can just log on and just type anything they want to in.
I mean, we're county commissioners who are arrested, but we don't want you guys arrested, just saying.
Just 4 last ones that had nothing to do with the county. And it was just sad. The mayor and the Historical Society, which has nothing to do with the county. PCDC questioning family relations. I literally got asked who people were. Like, they're like, isn't Eric Hale and Neil Saley and Chris and all them related? I'm like, but that has nothing to do with the county. The PCDC is final. I brought up the fact, somebody obviously knew that we didn't have a signed PCDC contract for 2024, because in the midst of this audit is when I realized we never got a signed copy of the PCDC contract. I went through the minutes, we did it, and I took care of it right then and there and signed it. The next thing was the CVB financials, which ended up, I was like, I don't have anything to do with that. So the reason, and I know that I spoke about this because this is very disturbing to me. And obviously if I need to do something better on my part, that I would share information, help, because a lot of these probably could have been answered or addressed or prior to taking it to the State Board of Accounts. Because like I said, when you submit something to the State Board of Accounts, they feel it warrants investigation, that you have done something on your end. You have knowledge, you have record, you have something on your end that warrants this investigation. Because in the end, it cost us the county. It cost us the county, which cost the taxpayers dollars, which we have not received the bill. And I know I've been asked this several times, how much? We haven't got the bill. These are just estimates. The financial costs, so the main part of our audit, the regular part, is estimated to be around $52,000. Our federal, which is the ARPA funds, is $19,500, which was way more than what was expected. And then the extra from the anonymous tips is going to cost between an additional $10,000 to $12,000. So I know that I was asked a lot of questions about this. I know that I was very disturbed by the audit. I know that our field examiners were very disturbed by this audit. It wasn't very good representation on Perry County at all. I will honestly say this, that one of our field examiners' wives was originally from Perry County, and he's retiring the end of this year. And they were thinking about moving back here. And after this audit, he said, no way. So I just want to make sure the public and everyone else knows that everything's public in our office. And if you have any questions, concerns, or anything, my office is an open door. And I know that anybody could have submitted these, but like I said, the one against me, primarily with the special legislation, the only people that have access to that information are commissioners, council, and myself. So I know that was turned in by somebody. And it would have simply meant a lot more to me if somebody would have said, hey, Chris, I think you did this backwards, and we fixed it, instead of submitting it to the State Board of Accounts, which now has opened up a whole other realm with our special legislation fund. So,
Chris, can you take one question about that fund?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I mean, we're really trying to conduct a meeting here.
you can come and ask me later.
Well, I just wondered, if that's the money that you're using to build the prosecutor's division, it was jail fund, and it was supposed to go into another account, is that what you're saying? Because I don't understand that.
What the auditor, the lead management auditor, Jamie, I can't ever say her last name. She said that and it's listed in here, in 2022, when those bonds were paid off, that money should have been moved to a jail operations fund, whatever the balance was at that time.
Thank you.
So I just had a lot of questions about the audit, I would not answer anything till after her exit. And I did not want to, words that I say or words about the audit be telephoned and misconstrued. So I do appreciate you giving me the time to talk about the audit at your meeting. I actually planned to do it at the commissioners or the council meeting, but I'll be out of town that day. But I wanted to professionally relay the information from my mouth, not being said from someone else's mouth. And I think our citizens need to know how we're doing. And from the main point of our audit, and even from the additional tips that were sent, I think we're doing pretty daggone good. And most of the things that were submitted were unwarranted. Again, my office is open. Everything is public knowledge. I do know what I cannot share as far as innkeeper's tax and whatnot. So if anyone has any questions in my next 2 years as your auditor, feel free to come see me. So thank you.
Next item we have on the agenda is the health claims in the amount of $94,892.38.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item up is the accounts payable claim docket for 10/17/2024 in the amount of $1,240,589.08.
We'll make a motion.
Have a motion
I'll second that
and a
motion.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item up is the prosecutor's office has surplus filing cabinets. Yeah,
I called and talked to Prosecutor Hurst, and they have several filing cabinets down there that most of them are just falling apart. And they have a company, Piranha, that will come get it, shred it, and they wouldn't bring anything at auction. I doubt if you get $1 a piece out of them at auction. So and they will haul it all. They'll shred and take the filing cabinets and everything out. So, and I wanted to bring it before the commissioners, so I could go ahead and be done.
I think we just need to approve
Just approve, get it done.
What they'll do is I think they'll pick the filing cabinets up. No one in the county wants them.
No,
So,
You just have to make them surplus. I mean,
Surplus it,
to
yep.
get
And then
rid
we've
of.
talked to them and to update the data pit stop inventory.
is that even in the inventory of the filing cabinets?
Should have been.
some of them even came from way back when Jim Tyler was
Well,
Somewhere.
we,
long away.
We'll get a count on
Yeah,
it,
we'll
take
get
a
a
look at
count
the
on it.
inventory and just make sure we get a count.
Yeah.
So we know and we'll mark that many off the inventory.
There's several,
So
Quite a
I know there's a
few.
room full of
and they're
them.
not any of the fireproof or anything, they're all junk.
we did the same but we utilized ours with the car. We didn't get rid of ours. We moved ours around But going paperless, which they are too, like
Everything
we
in
are
the filing
too.
cabinets has already been scanned in, so
So you just
it's been shredded.
So I'd entertain a motion to allow the prosecutor's office to dispose of those cabinets and the files
I make a
as
motion.
surplus.
I'll second that motion.
The motion is second, all those in favor? Next item up is we have an appointment that's due for the Perry County Memorial Hospital, but it won't be made until the November 4th meeting. And the applications are due Friday at 4:00. I believe it's the 1st of November. So that one, along with the health board, is the same condition. We put them out for 6 weeks, and 6 weeks will be, so we make that appointment on the 4th. So
There's two for the hospital, correct?
2 for the hospital and 1 for the health board. And there may be some restrictions. I believe there was a requirement on the hospital that we need a doctor on there, and I haven't had a chance to look up the actual requirements, but I was thinking that was one of them. And I believe the one on the health board is politically
Yes,
affiliated.
politically affiliated.
So there are a few restrictions on those,
Mhm.
but that won't be made till the next meeting. The next item we have up is and I think the redevelopment, I asked them to do this, the striping down at the Foundry and Web Wheel as you come in and out, and the striping in front where the stop sign is getting kind of old and they can't see it. So whenever it rains, they're having difficulty.
It's dangerous
determining-
anyway,
Yeah.
right there.
So Steve had checked with a striping company, and they would come down and do it. And I asked the redevelopment about some additional TIF money that they had left over from Web Wheel. And if I think right, Steve, see, $1,000, right? $1,000 is what they said that it would cost to do it. So
Who's gonna do that, Steve? I know y'all don't have a striper.
I didn't bring my notebook with me. It's, Tell City used them some, and Du Bois County used them. You remember the name of it, Randy? I don't remember. I've got it there.
Yeah.
before, but
I know it's not cheap to get that done.
but they'll come in and stripe it. And we have that money left over, so it
Mhm.
won't impact the budget anywhere. And then we can get that road, because that is our road. It is on our inventory, right? If it's not, it needs to be on there.
That was supposed to have been added to the inventory when they did the application for the other road that they didn't get.
Yep.
They said that had to be put on the county inventory to apply for that other section.
Okay.
So they were gonna put it on, but they said we didn't have to do any maintenance on or plowing snow or anything.
Right. I think they're taking care of that. They just asked us to strike it. So if you're okay with that, I'd entertain a motion to utilize those TIF funds to pay for that striping, and have Steve go ahead and get a hold of the contractor and get it done for him.
They'll have to have a meeting to approve it themselves too, won't they? Redevelopment.
Redevelopment should have already approved it.
Okay.
Because I said something to them earlier about that, and they said they had, because I asked them about funding. They said they had some in the Web Wheel, which Web Wheel's at the end of the road.
Yeah.
They use the same entrance, so he said that would be the more convenient one to use it, to get the $1,000 out of. So
Cool.
I don't know that I do that yet. I think that's not supposed to be out.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second, all those in favor of striping the road?
Aye.
Aye. Next meeting we have is Monday, November the 4th at 9 a.m. and it's gonna be back here. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Just one. Yeah.